This is Outside the Box with Asendia USA, a podcast educating U.S.-based brands, marketplaces, and e-tailers on international shipping topics and how they can expand their global e-commerce footprint.
Welcome back for our second part of our Canada Special Edition episode with our special guests, Dave Mays and Tom Foley.
I think a lot of clients were gun shy about making a move because I think everybody, like we talked about earlier, everybody was kind of hoping this wasn't going to happen, but it did. And when it did happen, as you know, everybody in the sales organization were reaching out to their clients saying, "Hey, we are probably the only one that has a good plan B, a very good plan B for your packages and your shipments." And we had so many individual requests from clients to get this thing done, including myself. I had a very, very large client, one of our largest top 5 accounts, who really wanted to move over, and we got it moved over. We took everything we had to do. Everybody did everything they needed to do, Dave's team included, and it was an excellent experience. The feedback we got from him and his clients were thank God you guys had something for us, and it really did help out. And I can tell you, being in the industry that I am, nobody in our space really had a solution like we did. They really did. And I heard of phone calls being made and people begging to come up with some kind of a delivery partner up in Canada. And it was really, really kind of a very difficult situation for them. So you're right, Nick.
Yeah. No, I think it really gets down to what's the yes, but, right? So in these things, there's always what's the but. And here, we have this great solution, but you have to do all the customs clearance yourself, and you have to pay the, whatever it is, and it's going to be extra. So for us, and I always tend to look at things through a compliance lens, right? Because that's the world that I come from. But so, was there anything different from a compliance standpoint that these customers that made this switch needed to do in order to gain access to this tool, or is it all just kind of ready to go from what they needed? Because a lot of times customers will shy away from that additional regulatory burden or additional filing or additional tasks or data elements that need to be included in these kinds of kind of off the cuff solutions. So is there anything different that they needed to do from a compliance standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from clients who are shipping through the USPS, a lot of the requirements, they're just not being enforced by the USPS. For instance, HTS codes, the tariff schedule codes, that's required. Country of origin for the most part. But when you move over to a commercial service like Dave's on the Broadreach side, that is kind of required. But we're lucky we have a tool, Jason, right? I mean, you manage this. We have a tool that actually helps provide that documentation if the client can't. So that really kind of helped out, I think, right, Dave? I mean, that was a help.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there is an inarguable difference between the postal stream and the commercial stream in terms of the enforcement of stated rules and laws.
Right.
We, combination of our police daily by CBSA, through our bond, through our trucking licenses, and through, again, working with agents and releases, that we must have accurate values and we must provide accurate HTS codes, which is a function of having a accurate description. So gift, $9, made in the USA, and it's a $120 sweater going to grandma or whomever. I mean, so there was a lot of work to do what principally should be, theoretically should be easy to move over, but we all know it's more difficult than that. But we have a great team. We knew when we knew this was happening, which was unfortunately the day of the strike, we decided we are going to do everything to throw resources at every solution to get all these parcels delivered, the 98% of them, at no additional cost or hassle to our e-merchants. Granted, again, we need good data. Those are for like services, meaning on day 1, they're using Asendia Direct DDP to Canada, and on strike day 2, they're using Asendia Direct DDP to Canada. For the postal crossover from a postal solution to a commercial solution, there might have been some additional costs associated with reconstructing the entire program. But both of those channels, we handled amazingly well. Easy for me to say that in my office here in California, but the team on the ground, the trade services folks, IT, and obviously on the US side of the board, the Asendia team did an amazing job. And I don't think there's really accurate published transit times and recovery and alt solutions, but I'd like to hear a story of someone doing better than Asendia and Broadreach had during that period. I doubt it exists.
That's fantastic. Thanks.
No, I love it too.
Yeah,
So,
if you think about it too, the knowing what the massive amount of backlog is going to be up in Canada, not just from the U.S. but from China, from Europe. I mean, all these countries that feed, nothing was moving. Absolutely nothing was moving. So one of the things that in the conversations I had with my clients, and Nick, you probably did as well, was what is this going to look like? I mean, how much just from the U.S. is backlogged, and how long then is it going to clear? So the strike ended on the 17th of December, right? USPS didn't open back up again until the 6th of January. And then many, many, many days after that, they were still trying to get the mail out of their building. So knowing that ahead of time and being able to offer the solution with Broadreach was very, very helpful to some of our very, very important clients. It's really about the magnitude of the backlog is really
significant. I mean, we talked about 10 million sitting in Canada, plus 10 million plus, let's say, and then you're talking about 90 plus trailers, 53-foot trailers, in different areas that are. And then you're talking, but that's just U.S. to Canada. What about the world to Canada, right? I mean, you think about, there's impact there that we're not even talking about because we're so focused on our U.S. Our North America perspective. But I think it's important to provide some distinction that for listeners, if you're thinking, well, why the heck wouldn't I be using this network anyway as it is? There are some differences, right? So the ePack Plus product that we talked about, which is really, it's a postal partnership product, right? That if you were processing using ePack Plus, it wasn't going anywhere till the strike was over and backlog was cleared. That's what was highly impacted, right? So the direct access product, Dave's product, you're going from a postal product that's a DDU or delivered duties unpaid versus a DDP product, which is Dave's product. Now you're looking at apples and oranges here. And we have a couple podcasts previously that we recorded where we talked about this, but I would just highlight here and kind of take a quick break during the conversation that any additional questions that you may have or any additional interest, we are happy to field those and get you to the right people to talk about those things. But there are some additional requirements, as Tom mentioned, or at least, kind of led the conversation with in terms of, proper descriptions, HS codes, values, countries of origins, and things that you need to be able to provide in order to access that direct access network. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things that I found just scouring the web, and I remember going back through those dark days there with some backlog info. So listen to this statistical average that I thought was interesting. So Canada Post handled approximately 8.5 million letters and 1.1 million parcels per weekday during peak season 2023, according to the CBC. That's like that. When I think about that, and then I think of, no processing during 2024, and we talk backlog. I mean, these numbers have got to be things that we won't have access to. We won't know what the true numbers are, right? But they had to be tremendous. An estimated, over 10 million parcels on hold in Canada, many more processed and staged for U.S. to cross-border delivery. And then on top of that, as Jason mentioned towards the beginning, I think one thing I really want viewers and listeners to know when we drop this episode is this is not a finished subject. So I want everybody's perspective. Come May, the contract, I think CUPW contract is now extended to May 22nd, 2025. Then it says when talks are set to resume. Anybody know what that means? I'm just asking. No, not really. I mean, I just hope that they don't wait until the last possible minute to let us know what what's going on with it. We could be in the same exact position as we were in before in December.
The contract expired way before the strike date this last year. So I don't really know what changes from that period to this period that we're in, other than mandated back to work, probably due to compounding and escalating losses by the Postal Corporation that ultimately is a crown corp that ultimately is going to impact taxpayers. I mean, there's a universal service obligation, and there was a lot of pain and suffering during this strike period that I don't think can be overstated. All that being said, Canada Post, I'm not going to go into specifics because I don't know them, but loses a lot of money, we'll just say. And they perform and they've been going through a postal transformation almost as long as I've been working with them. And that postal transformation has been slow but positive. You go to their facility in Greater Toronto, if you see the postal transformation in terms of technology and equipment, they're a very, very fine service provider of mail, packets, parcels, and even their expedited services are quite good. But again, it's a very, very open marketplace for private couriers and regional couriers and national and international couriers to participate. So they have competition, which competition is generally good. But this was particularly tough because let's just name a couple couriers, but not be specific. Maybe you're UPS, maybe you're Purolator, maybe you're another integrated provider. On November 15th/16th, your door's getting beat down with merchants trying to give you as many parcels as you can physically take. Their networks were not only full, they were not accepting freight for a period of time from small and medium-sized businesses, making some exceptions for large businesses. And the trickle-down effect or the ripple effect of this affected a lot of the larger transportation companies that move parcels. So what was the lesson? Well, the 25 years of not having a hard, straight work stoppage to the degree that we just had it didn't really penalize, I think, Canada Post, to put it that way, with permanently lost business. This probably will impact the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years of their operating income and or profits as it relates to customers they may have lost for good. And what does that do to the competitive landscape? So it's a very subjective as much as it is objective conversation on, does Canada Post go out and lower rates and try to win all this business back? Do they ask for longer, more binding contracts? Do they commit to never have a work stoppage or strike again? I don't know. I mean, I'm in California. We have natural disasters. It feels like all the time, mudslides and fires and earthquakes. I think it's about preparedness, and I think small and medium-sized businesses, especially large ones, maybe not, need to plan for these type of events more seriously in the future.
All right. So Jason, are you okay if I just transition into, current state and where we are with, timelines in terms of, transits, and then talk a little bit more about the direct access network? And so,
yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So Tom, I think you're probably closest to it at this point. Where are we today with transits and such?
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, as of last week, what's today? Monday, right? So middle of last week, we're noticing that receptacles that we gave them for Canada, especially, that have what they call an N46 error. It's a term that's being used, which means that there's no customs data. All the mail that we brought back to them, like we were instructed to, was not moving. Then all of a sudden we started making some phone calls and emails, and the IMEG group got involved. Turns out that there was an internal systems issue with the USPS nationwide at all the international service centers that would not allow this mail that was kicked back to be brought back until they fixed that. So not only did they not accept any mail up until very recently, but even the mail that we were allowed to give back, they still couldn't get rid of. So as of right now, that's been cleared up. That was cleared up on Thursday of last week. I believe it was Thursday. So now we brought all of our mail back, and now we're starting to finally see some movement. So, and today is the 13th, so this is probably around the 10th or so. So we're talking, an additional 4, 5, 6 days that mail did not get cleared, even after the USPS waited quite a while before they released their suspension. So right now, I think we're in a good place. But when you asked me about this last week, if you remember, I wasn't too confident.
You were not.
I wasn't. But now I see things moving. Now we just have to look and see, okay, what are the delays going to be now with the USPS and Canada Post when it gets there? That's part two of this. Supposedly Canada Post is cleared up fairly well up there. But when I start doing some analysis, we'll see.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the current situation. That's for the USPS volume, the EPAC Plus, some of the EPAC Select, the PMI. So it's finally getting up there with a major delay. So.
Okay. So let's transition to, yes, this is Asendia's podcast, and we don't want to be overtly biased, right? We want to be more educated or educative, if you could, towards the listeners and viewers. But the reality is, we do have a solution. We have a very good solution to offer shippers. Enterprise brands, extremely large enterprise brands, all the way to even large or medium sized organizations or shippers too. So we're talking, if you're an enterprise brand, if you're an online retailer, online only. If you're a large subscription box brand or base brand, 3PL, or even, and the ones that really got kind of burned here too, those fulfilled by merchant marketplace sellers that are having to do all those, credits. I want to talk to you a little bit about our Canada Direct Access Network. So again, this is our own network. I'm not going to sit here and talk to you about it because I got Dave Mays on, and Dave created the network. So Dave, just maybe sort of a high level, one more overview for listeners, even though I know you've done it a couple of times already, just how the network works and really how it helps shippers that are doing a good amount of parcels going to Canadian recipients.
So I think maybe 20 and 30 years ago, it wasn't really understood what the value of a consolidator is in the marketplace. So in our particular case, we do not pick up 500 individual parcels and move them through an individual network being handled independently of each other. We pick up 500 parcels that are going from a state in the United States to 500 different consumers in Canada. We pick them up as one shipment. We aggregate and transmit customs and or package level detail. We truck those things into Canada. We do an electronic release. We use our bonded carrier code into our bonded facilities, and we release all those with customs without having to physically touch or have paperwork associated with each individual customs release. Then they go into our intra-Canadian network, where we drive them down to the closest major city and give it to the best possible delivery provider to complete the end-to-end door-to-door experience for a U.S. merchant shipping to Canada. The carrier agnostic kind of position that we take means our preference is the best option being defined as a blend of cost and service to achieve or reach the goals that we've commonly set with the merchant. Depending on the state that you're in, service levels will vary. If you're in the Midwest, upper Midwest, Northeast, Atlantic, that whole Northeast, you're going to get smoke and service to 60 to 70% of the country, as fast almost as you could put it on an aircraft and hub it through Louisville or Memphis. The 80-20 rule, just like always, comes into play in Canada, where 80% of the population lives pretty easy to get to and pretty close to the US border. It's the 20% that is difficult, and that's where the strike really hurt us. So we had to pay additional costs, and we had to onboard additional carrier options to get the 98% that we committed to get delivered. But at the end of the day, we have a network, a transportation network that drives those parcels anywhere between 90 and 98% of the total mileage of that journey. And we give it to final mile delivery partners for the last 2 to 10% of the total mileage of that journey. Again, if it's a packet, if it's 4 ounces, Canada Post is a fantastic option. If it's a box, if it's 8 pounds gravity and 20 pounds dimensional, UPS or Intelcom might be a better option. We've evolved so that all of our transport coming into Canada reaches certain destinations at certain times to reach certain sort requirements to really improve the service versus our peers. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we are an aggregator consolidator that has a exclusive focus on Canada to move, again, small, medium, and large size. If we didn't have any large customers, it'd be hard to do what we're doing for the small and medium size.
Right.
But I don't want to forget about the small and medium sized businesses that get to gain the service advantage of having these trucks full moving into Canada.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Dave. Jason, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think the only other question I would have, even for Dave, is so assuming this, in a perfect world, this would be, kind of a podcast that goes out into nowhere and never happens again. Nobody ever has this problem again. Yeah. But assuming that, one day it does happen again, what do customers need to do for you in order to make that change? Is there, what do they need to ask for? What do they need to reach out about? And kind of who's it open to? Is it open to everybody, or just tell me a little bit about that?
So from my perspective, the only takeaway that I have is that we need to figure out a way to get that 2% delivered that we had to hold. It's really 2.5, whatever. And again, it's communicating with the merchant who communicates with the customer. So really the Canada Post exclusive and or Canada Post only points are something we need to work on in the future to provide a solution to. From our perspective, outside of that, because of the nature of the way that our network is set up, we can flip on and off carriers left, right, and center. Doesn't really matter. Our costs may go up, so there might be a price adjustment, but again, it really depends. The question that you asked actually is better for Tom to answer, because that's where the work is. Going from the USPS e-packet service into the Broadreach direct entry network, that is a big move. For us to move the hundreds of merchants that we currently have in a strike environment, although physically is a lot of work, just not technically data systems-wide, is not a lot of work.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add too, Dave, you were talking about your service versus USPS, for instance, and I can tell you that one of the things that I've been hearing back from a couple of my very, very large clients that are using this is the difference in the tracking events, particularly. The amount of events that the client sees going through the direct access network compared to the USPS is probably almost double. With the USPS, when the client's using e-packet, all they're getting is it arrives in country. They may see something in customs, but my opinion, doubtful. The next event will be when it arrived at the destinating post office and then it delivered. With the direct access network, you're seeing a lot more tracking events as it's being processed through, and that's the number one feedback that I received back. Besides the better transits, but it's also about the additional tracking events. But yeah, Dave, there is a big difference between what he's offering. The USPS is kind of like we talked about earlier. It's a no frills. The e-packet really kind of designed for lighter value, lower value shipments, kind of lighter weight, kind of goes through. CBSA Customs up in Canada just kind of does a wave through and off it goes. But the world is getting a lot tighter and stricter now. More and more clients are realizing that paying duty and doing everything up front is a lot easier than waiting for it to happen later. So in the case of the USPS, their shipments, when they go through, they're knocking at the door, collecting at the door at delivery. And a lot of times that's not the best experience. So clients that move over to the direct access solution or any DDP type service might be a little bit of work up front to get those HS codes and all that, but long term is definitely valuable to have. But there is a clear cut. There's some clients that might not be a good fit, but for the most part, DDP is a much better experience in the long term.
Yeah,
fantastic. Thanks, Tom.
I'll echo that, and I think for we're gonna wrap it up here soon. But I would just say for any of the viewers and listeners that have interest, let's say you're a current Asendia client, you're listening to this and say, hey, I'm interested in migrating over to the direct access network. Great. Send us the question. We'll work with you to see if it's a great fit. If you are not an Asendia client, great. Come over. We'll see if we can make that work, if it's a good fit for our network. Either way, again, our goal here with this show is to really help you guys navigate the cross-border direct consumer delivery landscape. And there was a huge shakeup in Q4 of 2024, which is why we're putting this podcast out kind of ready fire here in January, just to prep you guys for what happened a couple months back going into potentially what could happen coming up in May. And again, speculation, because there's really very little fact on it right now, but that's kind of where we're at. And we want to, is there anything before we wrap it up, guys, that you guys want to add?
No, just to say that we did get some nice testimonials recently on the switch over and the service that was provided. I think we could share that if clients need to. But overall, it's been a very, very good experience for most of our clients. A lot of them are going to stick with the service that we asked them to switch to that helped them. So a lot of that volume is going to remain in that network, which I think just kind of proves the point that it works. So
perfect. Dave, anything?
My last comment, not specific to the strike, would just be, let's all keep an eye out for potential changes in the USMCA agreement. If it remains intact through the duration of the contract period, life is good. If something significant happens, that could change quite a bit. And we'll need to have another podcast specifically on that topic, because as we spoke about in the other podcast, up to $40 Canadian is de minimis and duty and tax free. Up to $150, no matter manufacturing origin, independent, up to $150 Canadian is duty free. And that is a significant commercial advantage to our program. Through the postal stream, theoretically, it's 20 Canadian. So, assuming that remains intact, everything we said is consistent. If that is disrupted or changed, that can make a material impact on cross-border shipping. So
you'll be seeing us again with another episode at that point.
Yeah.
So, all right, Jason, anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, just a big thank you to Dave and Tom for their time, and thanks to you, Nick, for your time and effort. I know you go through a lot to put these things on, so thanks a lot, and looking forward to doing it again.
Jason, you're the man. Welcome to your first show, by the way. I just want to say congrats. You did a great job, and thank you both very much, Dave and Tom. Tomahawk for being on the show. And that's it, folks. We're done for the day.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Share, subscribe, and download our podcast. To learn more about today's topic or for a free consultation, email us at ecommerce.usa@asendia.com. Come back for more insightful discussions on e-commerce shipping to Canada, Mexico, and worldwide.